Hello and welcome. So this is another of my 60 conversations, and today I have the delight and pleasure to be here with the lovely Linda Ford. We haven't actually met in person. We were just having an amazing conversation actually. I said, whoa, stop, press record quick. But we've circled each other in the same world for a long time, I think, but never actually met or had a conversation. So I'm really looking forward to finding out more about you and continuing the discussion we just started. So do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yes, and thank you, Deb, for the invitation. I think what you're doing is amazing and beautiful, and I'm honored to be part of this. So thank you.
So
And happy
welcome.
birthday, happy 60th. That's
Thank
quite
you. Yeah, it's been great.
a beautiful age to be. So
I
why
do
not
love it.
brag about it, right? So yeah, about me. Who am I? Uh, I think what comes to mind first is that because I know you've been asking this question to everyone as how you start off these interviews. So obviously I had a little think about how I would describe myself. And I guess it really comes down to I am someone who's always been insatiably curious about why is it that some people thrive in life and others don't? And I can talk about where the seed of that curiosity came from, but that's pretty much what has been the framework for my own life to figure that out. And it also has led to the kind of work that I do in my coaching. Um, I'm interested in why people feel stuck, how they get stuck in life, why they continue to sit on the fence, that damn painful fence that we sit on sometimes. And I've sat on many of them. And what is it that really allows us to get off the fence? What's going on there? Why do we keep feeling that we can't move out of a painful relationship or a job that just sucks the soul out of us, and we continue to just live these lives where we say, well, I'm fine. I'm fine, And so so that's kind of where I'm coming from. These are the subjects that I love to talk about and also try to live in my own life. I've had some really major big changes lately. I've just moved from the US after 38 years. And I've moved back to my home where I was born in Northern Ireland. Big change. And that didn't come easy. But yeah, so they're the things that make me who I am. I've got hundreds of books and read hundreds of books on change and why we avoid it, and what's involved with that. What's going on? What's the foundational piece that's going on that keeps people stuck? So I can leave it there I'll let you jump onto that. Where do you want to go with it, Deb?
Well, that is definitely a discussion after my own heart too. This whole, I don't think that curiosity started for me until I stayed in a very unhealthy relationship for over 20 years. And then when I got out of that relationship and realized, what was out there and the difference that made. And then I got curious about, why did I stay there all of
Yes,
that time? And why
yes,
do people, and I guess for me it was like, how can I help people that are staying there like I did see the folly of that, if you like, and
yeah.
see that there is something more. So it's definitely, and like you, I'm curious about why do we do that, and curious for myself when I see situations that I can still potentially, like, oh yeah, I'm just going with this and it's not what I want. What's going on for me? What can I do? So it's definitely,
Mhm.
yeah, I would love to share some of your findings, please do. What did you come up with?
Yeah, well, to give you the cliff notes, the reason we do get stuck And I've been stuck in many relationships, just like you, Deb. I know you've had a painful experience in your relationship, but um, I boil it down to it's insecurity, lack of self-love, low self-esteem, all that good stuff. And
Being
then just
confident.
not knowing who we really are, you know?
Yeah.
And and there's no fault of that. How, you know, as you know, as we all know, we weren't born with a user manual to explain who we are, who we really are. And so we get trapped in these lives that we're afraid to make a move because we don't know what's on the other side. And we don't know, like when you don't know that who you really are is designed for success. And that word success is kind of not a great word, but we are designed to thrive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you don't know that, then you kind of want to keep sitting on that damn fence.
Mm.
And so, you know, there's a great quote by, who is it? Gloria Steinem. And she said, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." Right? And so,
So true. So true.
isn't it a great quote? And so
Yeah.
the reason we get stuck is that we don't want to face the truth
Yeah.
about our unhappiness, right? Of where, so say, for example, you're in a relationship and you don't want to be able to speak the truth of that because for fear you're going to break someone's heart, you're going to tear up the family, or all kinds of things, right?
Mm.
And so the truth will set you free, but it will piss you off because you're going to have to deal with all that crap. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you need to have these difficult conversations.
Mm.
And I was always terrified of having these honest conversations with someone because I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to cause all this havoc in his life and in my families, what will my family think of me? So it's all of that stuff, you know, it's all about fear and not believing that the truth will actually set you on the right path in your life, you know.
There was one particular thing that you said in there that literally just rings in my ears, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, this was so what caught me. What will fill in the blank think? You know, what will they think? What will da 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 think? What will and I can still see that can definitely be a thing for me. You know, what will,
Yeah.
and whoever it happens to be in that particular moment, depending on what it goes, you know, what will they think? What will they say? What will they do? And that was definitely a huge fear for me about, you know, and oh my gosh, that kept me trapped and
Yes,
still
yes.
has the potential. One of the things that I've noticed with these 60 conversations, I know I've mentioned it before in other conversations that I've had, like reaching out to people to ask if they would, you know, be a guest on these conversations, and potentially people that I don't know. And the, you know, the thoughts that can arise when I go to send a message, well, what if they say no? And that is
Yes.
definitely rooted in, you know, if you had said no to that, to the, no matter what, if you'd have just said, oh, no, or ignored me, you know, my head then makes up, oh, well, that Linda clearly doesn't like me then. So
Mm-hmm.
what's she seen about me? What she watched, or what she seen? What's wrong with me? What will, and I get, you know, it's crazy, isn't it? What
Yeah,
our heads make up. And potentially it could just be like, do you know what? I'm moving house. I'm really busy right now. I'm blooming, you know, I have no
I
idea.
know. Yeah.
But what my head, where it can go. And so then potentially it will just be like, oh yeah, I'm just not going to send the message. I'm just not
Yeah.
myself.
Isn't it amazing? And how even even at 60, after
Yeah,
all these years,
yeah,
it still pops up, you know, pops
yeah,
up in you. And that just really speaks to the conditioning we've had. You know, we've had decades of training I know I have. I grew up as a what they call an adult child, which means I was always trying to take care of my parents. In other words, I was always trying to make them happy because they were miserable. And so I was always like the caretaker, you know, always worrying about how someone else feels and feeling as if, and as a child, you can understand because my whole kind of security was in that house with my parents. And so if there was any kind of rocking the boat, it meant my whole sense of security was, on high alert.
Yeah.
And so, it- the innocent thing to do was to just make sure they were happy. And so that kind of mentality, that attitude, that trait followed me most of my life. And so when I got into relationships with men, it was always, I have to make them happy. I have to make sure they're happy, they're taken care of. And that caretaker followed me for decades, you know. And yes, like you're saying, Deb, it still pops up, and it's like, oh, there's that thing again, it just won't go away, you know. It's like it's like a little pilot light inside you that's still there, and it probably won't ever go away. But the difference now is that you and we're so onto it, we,
Yeah.
we so we so know what it is when it comes up, right? That we don't light the flame.
No, I mean, obviously we're here on the call. I sent the message, but yeah, and it is, I see it for what it is now, most
Yeah.
of the time, I believe, and the ridiculousness of and also, I've got to a place where it's like, I actually don't mind what you think of me. Definitely there was a time when it was kind of like, oh my gosh, a little bit like you're talking about your caretaker. For me, there was a real need in me that people liked me. And it was kind of
Yes.
like, okay, so Linda has got to like me. So
Hmm.
what does that mean? So I couldn't, the whole dare to be you for me stemmed from this whole place of I had to be on alert for who I had to be so that you would like me.
Yeah.
There's no kind of relaxing into what does Deb like? Who am I? What might I say? The whole time there would be a narrative there going on about, well, what must I do then so that Linda will like me?
Oh, I had that one too, Deb, too. Yes. Big time.
how how restricting, and you can't relax and be. And one of the things, when you talked earlier about saying, we are here to thrive, one of the things that I really, really see now is that we are sparks of divinity. We've each got our own preferences, things that make me, things that make you. We're unique, and there is beautiful things about us. And that's what we're here to express and do. And I can
Hmm.
see that ridiculous red alert, who do I have to be so Linda likes me, stopped me being my divine spark.
Yes. Yes.
And so even when people liked me, they didn't like me because they had no idea who I was.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I love what you're saying there. And it's true. We kind of, you know, dampen the flame of who we are throughout our lives. We get it knocked out of us. Some of it innocently, some of it not so innocently. And teachers, parents, friends, um, it gets knocked out of us, and we just kind of lose that connection to who we really are, to our true selves. And I can honestly say, Deb, that I've only really just wakened up to who I really am when I became 60. I'm 70, I'm going to be 70 next month.
Wow.
And so
Amazing.
that it's taken me that long,
Yeah, yeah,
really.
yeah.
And but I wish I had have got there sooner, but I've only really found my voice, that uniqueness about me, and since 60. maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But it does we get it knocked out of us, we get it dampened, and that's the tragedy, you know. And so you can always tell when you're not, I like to call it, not in integrity with yourself. And when I use the word integrity, it's not so much about a moral thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just the integrity of being aligned with your true self, right? It's that kind of integrity. It's like structural integrity. And you know something's off when you're not feeling inspired to do things, or you back away from being creative, or you kind of keep listening to the inner critic within you that says, oh, you're not good enough to do this or that. So there are all these signs. I mean, life is so beautifully designed to teach us, to nudge us, right? Like, okay, this is where you're out of integrity, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a very gentle voice. It's not a harsh, get it together, you know, it's not like that. It's just a very gentle, soothing voice, that inner wisdom in you that says, hey, you know, you're out of integrity because you're not actually living your true self. You're not being expressive. You're not telling people the truth about how you really feel. So these are all symptoms of when you're out of alignment. And most people um, don't know how to respond to those prompts, if you like. And so they just kind of end up living these lives where, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine, you know. You know, I heard a really good the woman who taught me to coach many, many years ago, Dr. Martha Beck. Um, she wrote this book about integrity, and she gave a great metaphor in one of her. She's a great writer, and she talks about, like, we've all had the experience of being on an airplane. And I had this experience actually a few years ago. I was all settled into my seat. I got upgraded for the first time, business class, right? And, you know, the champagne was there, and I had this beautiful seat all to myself. And, you know, we were just about to take off on the runway. And then all of a sudden, the captain comes on and he says, I'm really sorry, folks, but we're going to have to leave the plane because there's something structurally just out of kink here. We're not quite sure what it is, but there's something gone awry with the mechanics. And we wouldn't want to be up 35,000 feet and be in that position, right? And so even though we were all pissed off and we were all like, you know, oh God, no, there's no way we would have wanted to be up there. And we left begrudgingly, but we left because we knew it was the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, when the physics is wrong, when the physics of the plane, the structure are out of kink, we know what to do. We know the right thing to do. And I thought it's just a great metaphor for the physics of our own being, right? The mechanics, the physics of when life is not showing up for you, and you're not thriving. There's something off kilter. There's something not quite right. And most of us, instead of saying, oh, I should look into this, there's something, let me explore, let me get curious about what it is. Let me start asking some questions and being truthful about what's not working in my life. And but most of us don't do that. We just, no, I'm going to fly 35,000 feet through life, you know? I'm going to go 20, whatever the speed is, and just take what happens, right? So it's a really good metaphor, I thought, of how, what if we had put the same attention into living this, how to live a life that thrives.
Yeah. Be yeah, be much more, I guess, what's the word? much less tolerant of when things, because I can see that for me as well. It would be like something inside me was kind of saying this isn't right, but well, yeah, okay, I'll just make sure everybody else is okay and get on with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rather than, like you say, get curious about, okay, so what isn't right for me? What isn't right here? And yeah, I think certainly it tends to be the last place we look.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, what is it? What's and I heard a great metaphor as well. I think metaphors are so helpful. I heard
Aren't they? Yeah.
a great metaphor, and this has been really helpful for me and in my work that I do with people. When we're born, I've just not long had a gorgeous new grandson. He was born in,
Yes, congratulations.
yeah, and I've got another one. I don't know whether it's another
Oh my God.
happening in September. So yeah, but you know, you see these new babies when they're born, and he doesn't come. He has not come with any kind of judgment of himself or anybody else. You know, if he's hungry, he just makes noise. You know, he doesn't care. His body makes noises, he makes noises, he has no care what anyone thinks of
Yeah.
that. And he's not kind of thinking, oh, you know, mum's tired, I won't cry, or any of this. You know, he just does himself quite well. And then over time, it's like we create, and I think it's partly self-created and partly like we hear it, we get what in this metaphor is called a lie identity. It's like we create a lie about who we are, and
Yeah.
you know, we're told, you know, you're too big, you're too small, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too white, you're too black, you're too blah 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 blah. You're
Yeah.
not good enough, you're all of these kinds of things, and we end up with a lie identity. And I can really see that, and insecurity definitely comes from a lie identity, because we have no idea who we are. So it's all a bunch of lies that's made up. You know, the whole idea that we can be not enough or too much, it's just a lie.
Right.
And that's where we start. And then at some point we kind of think, well, something must be, you know, this isn't quite right. So then we try, and I think our first attempts at this are, we switch to what I would call a my identity, and that's kind of, we tend to look, okay, what do I want? What's going on for me? What's this? And then at some point, and this is what I see, like coming across the principles and looking towards my spiritual nature and looking more deeply, what I can see now is actually we have what I would call a God entity.
Mm.
And it's like when we look past all of that, past who we initially, you know, first of all, I can see like in my relationship and that insecurity, and I kind of went from being a victim and people doing this to, no, this is who I'm going to be, and this is what you know, that was my identity, and it was definitely slightly better than my lie identity, but it still wasn't really where it was at. And then kind of coming actually to discovering what we're talking about here, this deeper truth of who we are, this okayness that is beyond the human form, something about us that it is more. And I can really see that my thriving really started when I looked, you know, that this spark that I have, what I am calling my, you know, the God entity in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love what you're saying there, Deb. You know, when I came across the principles, I was having a conversation with the wonderful Robin Charbit, who we should hear more about. We should hear more
Yeah,
of. I
yeah.
mean, he's just amazing. And I was sharing with him how I was just always, like I said, I always went through life feeling like some people have it and some people don't have it, you know?
Something like
And
missing in us.
yeah, there was something missing. And he just turned to me and he said, Linda, you've always had it. You've always had, you know, confidence, creativity. You've always had that joy, that ability to thrive within you. It's just that you forgot. You just forgot. You got it whacked out of you through social conditioning, just being in this Earth, you know, Earth School. And but it's always been there. And when he told me that, you know how it is when you first come across the principles and you hear something, there are certain things that just kind of land
Yeah.
and they just resonate deeply with you. And I heard the truth of that in
Mm.
that moment. Um, and it was a very special moment. It was very, you know, it went deep. And now, did I wake up the next day feeling confident and I can do anything? No. And I thought, well, you know, how am I going to live from that place? How is this going to change me? How am I going to show up in the world differently now that I've heard some truth? And I realized that, you know, I had to do something about it. If I believed what I'd heard, then I would have to take some action to show that that was the truth. So, like many people, and this is not a judgment, you know, and I do it too. It's like we hear something and it becomes just this intellectual knowing, and that's it. We don't do anything with it. But I kind of knew that, well, if I am all this good stuff, then let's just see. Let's put it to the test. And so I made a vow to myself that I would step out of my, you know, this made up Linda and really see if I had the goods within me, if I could show up in the world differently. And it was scary to kind of, you know, do public speaking or to put myself out there on my website and do interviews. It was really scary at first. And so, because I kind of, even though I've been coaching for about 20 years, um, I had a lot of clients, but I never went public, really public. I was hiding out quite a bit. And so that for me, I knew I had to kind of break out of my shell, you know. I knew I had to, as Michelangelo says, chip away all this conditioning and
Yeah.
just find the essence of who I really am inside, you know, because it's there. And so that's what, you know, it takes some work. It takes some action. And I'm really into action. And rather than just sitting around thinking about how great I am, I want to prove it to myself, you know? So that was a big contender for me. That created a big awakening for me. The more I stepped into those shoes, the more I could really experience the true confidence, true freedom of expression, um, you know, either verbally or in the written word, which I do a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there is something in that the action. If you have to be moved. One of the first courses that I ever wrote was called The Warrior's Journey, and it was
Oh,
called it for that reason, because I could see the same. I had a huge, you know, I saw something huge in the principles, but then it was like, you need to act from what you know. And I am very much the same as you. It's kind of like I'm not, certainly when I came to the principles, I was not in a good way on any level. I was not good in any arena. And it was like, if this isn't something that isn't going to practically help me with
mm,
parenting, with my health, with my finances, if this isn't going to be of practical help, I'm really not interested. You know,
right.
spirituality and woo-woo stuff and looking in that direction, it's all great. And but if it doesn't produce the goods, you know, in real time with real stuff, you know, when the stuff hits the fan and all this, if it's not going to work there, then I'm not interested. But I guess my part of that was to, like you say, to take actions in this, to be different, to see what happened if I showed up differently. And I think one of the things that I know in the group, in the Facebook group, asking it is given, Dominic's group, when there's something that Abraham says, it's like words don't teach.
Yes.
And I really see that the words are a really important part. You know, if you hear, and what I'm hearing in what you're saying, and what I saw for me was, I heard something, and what that did was it woke something up in me. So then I would be in a situation with my partner or with one of my children or something like that, and it would be like this thing that I had seen, these words that I'd heard would come, well, you know, you always do this, what if you do that? And it kind of opened up the possibility of putting it into practice, of saying or doing or showing up differently in some way. And that to me was the warrior, the courage to, okay, right, all right, I'll do this differently then, and let's see what happens. And then, and the proof definitely was in the pudding. It was like, absolutely, when I showed up differently, this life became different. And it was like, oh wow. And I hadn't realized, and that's like going back to something you said at the beginning here, that, you know, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And I know one of the things, you know, when I got out of my unhealthy relationship, and I was having a lot of help and support and counseling, but the overall message that I was getting was, you know, this isn't your fault. And it's not about fault. I don't mean fault, but it's kind of like, not so much this isn't your fault, that there's nothing you can do. It was kind of coming with that, you know, this happened to you, you're an innocent victim, it's not your fault, but it sort of came with this message, so therefore there's nothing you can do. But what I was hearing in this was, you were an integral part of this. And it's kind of like, if you can be different, this could be different. And there definitely was a sense of, do I want to stay? This is pissing me off. What do you mean? You know, what I was to do with it.
Yes.
But getting past that, and exactly like you're saying, experimenting and kind of going, okay, if I show up differently, and it's still, you know, the discussion here, when I sort of said I'm reaching out to do these conversations, I can see that one of my go-tos in the past will be, I'll think of somebody, you know, well, I don't really know that person. If I message them, they might, you know, what will they think? Da 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 da. And the old me would just be like, okay, I just won't send that. I'm too busy. I won't send that message. And it's like, no, show up differently. Send a message. And what happens is something different.
You know, those decisions that you made, Deb, I mean, they are so ginormous. I mean, they are full. You know, it's the wonder of hindsight when we look back. But it's such a powerful moment in your life when you actually just make a decision to do something or not do something.
Yeah.
Huge consequences, you know. And the fact that you were afraid, you know, should I stay or should I go in your relationship? The fact that you were afraid, but you did it anyway, had enormous consequences. I mean, look at your life now, you know? And for me, it was the same. I was in a relationship for 13 years with a guy. We weren't married. And for the last 5 years, it was really awful. And I knew I had to get out. And I spent the last 5 years on that damn fence in no man's land.
Yeah.
You know, should I or shouldn't I? You know, ruminating on this and that, and who's going to be hurt, and blah, blah, blah. And the irony is that as soon as I did leave him, within 6 months, he was married again. Can you believe it? And I had all those years of worrying about how I was going to break his heart. But anyway, that's a side thing. But the amazing thing, and I'm sure you've had this experience, is that when you have the courage to make that decision and walk through that door, and this was my experience, I walked through that door, and boy, did I never knew what was on the other side waiting for me. And there were doors that I didn't even know would be there, doors of possibility. And so it's like, oh my God, you know, if only I had have done this sooner, because it just, there's something about taking that courageous, step and just claiming I am powerful. I can do this. I deserve to thrive. This is who I really am. To be able to sit with that and just take the action, based on that is such a powerful thing.
Mm.
And as you experienced and I did, the universe really reciprocates
Yeah.
to that.
Yes.
You can feel that you're in integrity. The physics of your life, like the physics of the plane, they just kind of lock in together, and it's like everything kind of clicks into place. It's like finding that missing jigsaw piece that really clicks in and fits. And you think that's what it was. That's what was keeping me out of kilter, you know. So these are not light decisions. These are powerful moments. They are catalysts for our own awakening and expansion.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's little ones and big ones, like you can
Yeah.
see, I can, even just the decisions to show up differently. Like any time that anything isn't working the way that I want it to in my life now, there is, okay, how can I show up differently to this?
Yeah.
Really, and it can just definitely one of the things that I'm really, really seeing as well is about, and I saw this around relationships and everything, is the fact that we are all energy, and it is definitely how we energetically show up,
Mhm.
because we can do the right things and say the right things on the outside, but again, that word integrity is that
Mhm.
is that really true about me,
Mhm.
these things that I'm saying. And so one of the things is to be integrity with myself in that way. Because I know, like, when I was in my really unhealthy relationship, one of the things that I realized, one of the things that really, really confused me was things that he would say. And so taking the words at face value, and I didn't even know that this what it was, but energetically the words and the energy weren't a match. And so it's
Yes.
really confusing. And I think I don't think in normal circles of, like the certainly the counseling that I had, the help, and maybe it's different now because obviously it's been quite a while since I left my relationship. But when I would talk about what he would say, and even when I would share with friends early, he would say things, and I would say things like, he said he loved me, but basically he was threatening to kill me. And because there is a knowing inside you, we hit words are not, it's the energy behind the words, isn't it?
Right.
It's not in the word.
Absolutely.
But there is, for me, I didn't realize that. I didn't know, but and so I couldn't speak about it very easily, but there was
Yeah.
just this huge mismatch with everything.
You hadn't embodied it. Like I hadn't embodied it. You kind of know what you should do
Yeah.
and what's
Yeah.
right and wrong,
Yeah.
right? But
Yes.
like that's what you said, that hesitation is like it hasn't kind of really, and you haven't, that's the word I use, embodied.
Yeah,
It
because you're
hasn't
listening
gone.
to the words, you're not listening to the energetic, the truth, that deeper sign. You're listening to
Exactly.
the words, and the
Yeah.
words are saying one thing. And I guess in one sense, when we come to that, the fear, like you said, this whole, what will happen if I leave? What will happen if I do this differently? For a million, all sorts of things, not just in relationships, but there's all that fear. So the words are saying the right thing. So
Mhm.
we want the words to be true, but there's a
Mhm.
huge mismatch because the energy was like, yeah, it's really interesting just having this discussion because I knew energetically for years, but I
Mhm.
kept listening to the words
Yeah.
because the words were saying what I wanted them to say,
Yeah.
and certain words at certain time, anytime any words that were saying the right thing, I would hang on to that, and then it would, but there was something, yeah, this huge mismatch of, and then a knowing. So I didn't, yeah, your words embody it, and I didn't know it because I wouldn't allow myself to
Experience it. Yeah.
yeah, to know.
Exactly.
And
right.
I didn't understand it, and nobody ever pointed me in that direction.
I know. I
Ever
know.
talked about intuition or inner knowing as
Right.
if it was anything, it would be like get advice from an expert or somebody, or talk to somebody, and then it would be the details of what was going on,
Yeah.
not about, right, sit with what you know to be true. This
Right.
is the
Exactly.
God entity bit, but I think we
Yeah.
all have that magic that we have within us.
Yeah. And, it's it's part of how we evolve. I mean, when you think when we were kids, we rode our bikes and nobody could teach us how to ride that bike. We had to get on it and fall off it, right? We had to. And so I see it as the same thing. I had to go through the pain of all that relationship, and undergo the fear of leaving. Uh, but it was just such a cathartic experience. It really, after that experience, I really got it, that's what it's almost like that's what my soul was waiting for me to do. It wasn't pushing me. It wasn't saying, you've got to do this. There was just always this gentle voice within me saying, is this really what you want? Is
Mm,
this really the right thing for you? It was a gentle, kind voice.
yeah,
And that's really, it was these nudgings from my soul, like, you're not on your right path, you're not living your right life, but that's okay, you'll figure it out
yeah.
eventually. So yeah, my heart goes out to people, Deb, who are really stuck like this, because like we said at the beginning of the call, it's just decades of conditioning, um, and believing that we've got to have, you know, we've put such attention on the practicalities of life, and it's important. You've got to feed yourself, you've got to have money coming in, you've got to have all this stuff there, but you can have all that and be miserable. And I'm not saying that you should just throw everything out and run away or whatever. You have to think about things carefully and have a plan, and just kind of also remember, like really, I think it's just really, most people would say, oh, well, my life is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. But I actually think it's really important to take it so seriously about, are you living the life that you really want? I think it's real serious business. And I think it has because it has a huge impact when you show up in the world. Like when I see someone like you, and you're endeavoring to build your house, and you're so inspiring, and you're lit up. You're lit up, and you've got this beautiful family life, and that's inspiring. And it's good for people to see that, because there's so much other stuff that we see that's negative and really kind of closes us down. And I think even on a micro level, if we can be happy within ourselves and know that we're living a life of integrity, that kind of ripples out to our family, our friends, and to world peace eventually.
Yeah,
So there's nothing frivolous
no.
or superficial about trying to find your right life. There really isn't. It's the most important thing you can do. And I think we should all take it really seriously in a good way.
Yeah, in a really fun, light-hearted way.
In a fun way.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
couldn't agree more. And absolutely, I know for me, the reason that I share what's going on in my life in this, and I do, on my videos and things, if you watch my videos on my YouTube
Yes.
channel, and definitely when I I share truthfully about what is going on for me and the fears I have, and the joy, and and absolutely living, following my dreams and living my life this way. I share it like that because I can see, if we go back to what this call has been about, I kept myself small for so long. You know, I learned to live in fear. I got really good at it. You know,
Yeah, me too.
incredibly good at it. And
Yeah,
it was like, okay, so I am kind of relearning now to live, to drop that fear, to not live in fear at all, and seeing something amazing, really amazing, seeing what is possible and noticing those moments when fearful thoughts invite me back to make me small again, you know, to do
yeah.
that. And it's like, no, I'm not really interested in that. Now, do I fall for it sometimes? Yes. Do I get
Of
things?
course we do.
Yes.
Yeah,
But equally, then it's like, right, okay, I can see how things slow down and what happens when I do that. And then it's like, oh, right, yeah, okay, no, we're not doing that, are we? We're doing this. And what I can see is where we are in time, in, you know, what's going on for me. It really, really looks like there are huge changes everywhere. And I
yeah,
think we have seen so much that trying to change things out here just doesn't work. And yet when we change in here, that absolutely gets projected out to out.
absolutely. Yeah,
And a massive part of why I live my life the way I do and why I do what I do is because of what I have seen personally for myself, the changes, you know, who I know I was to who I am. I'm
yeah.
unrecognizable to myself, to the
I
person
know.
I was to who I am. And then it's like, I can see this and more
Mhm.
is available to anybody and everybody.
And this is the beauty of you being 60 and me being 70, because we've got all of that
Yeah.
life experience
Experience.
that we've learned from,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it, is of we can look back and see, yeah, that's who I used to be.
Yeah.
My God, to think that I was that, you know. Um, and I, like you, I was very closed down and insecure, and I can't remember a time where I wasn't insecure. So it's interesting to see. We have living proof of how change can happen.
Yeah.
It's not even change, it's transformation. It's deep,
It's
deep transformation, you know? And so you and I have been fortunate enough to come across these principles that really explain how the equipment of the mind works. And so, yes, fear never goes away. It will always come up. It always has. And it's always going to be there, but our response to it has completely transformed, right?
yeah.
That's how we get through what we get through. And that's the beauty of having this understanding of how the equipment works, you know. It's like again, the pilot, he knows how the equipment of the plane works. If that light comes on, he knows,
Yeah.
right?
We're
And
getting out.
so, yeah.
Mm.
So we got to get out and get back on track. So yeah,
And
beautiful.
I really, really do think that each one of us has got the possibility within us when we actually shine our own light. We do change the world. And it is, you know, sometimes we can look out at the terrible, terrible things that are going on in the world and sort of say, yeah, you know, we shouldn't be doing these frivolous things, that maybe things that look frivolous there. But I have really seen this is world changing stuff. When we change our lives personally, then everything changes.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
make those changes. And
Right.
I could not agree. I had tingles, you know, when we're saying we should all, in a really, really playful, nice, good way, we should take this incredibly seriously. You know, we are here to thrive. That's and
Mhm.
you know, to give that message to our young people and kind of say, which we are in a really great position. I think it's there's something around this that I'm also seeing that is a real privilege to be like, I can at this age, and I'm sure, you know, looking in this conversation we're having, I am miles away from done yet. And
Oh
yet,
yeah, I'm only just beginning.
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
really think that there is a place like for the matriarch with everything that's going on with feminine energy and masculine energy and all of these kinds of things. I think wasn't it the Dalai Lama or something that said Western women were going to change the world? And I
Yeah.
can really, really see that we are in a privileged position in so many ways, because like you say, we have, what don't we have? You know, it's just literally we have so much knowledge, a great amount of knowledge. We have feminine intuition, we have knowing, and don't get me wrong, I love men, I think they're great, and I don't.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And this is not, I think a huge part of this is about bringing back that balance between
Yes, it is.
the
Yes.
masculine and the feminine. But I really, really think that us women of a certain age, I can see the hugeness of the part that we can
Mm-hmm.
play in this,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
privileged position that we find ourselves in. We are
Right.
at an age where our children, you know, if we've had children or whatever, our children are grown, we have a wealth of experience and
Absolutely.
information and lived embodied stuff that we have got there. We've seen our own transformation. We know what it feels like to live, you know, through many, many things. And then we come at an age where we still have a lot of life left in us. We're still vibrant and lit up from the inside. And yet what we could, that wealth of experience that we could share is invaluable. I really, really am seeing that.
And we just have to own it, right, Deb?
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you know, saying this, one of the things that I can see as these words are coming out of my mouth, one of the things was, oh, who are you to be saying those kinds of things? What's going on in the background? And it's just like,
Yeah.
again, who are we not to
Who
say
we're not.
this? Because
Yeah.
I think if we don't, these conversations, you know, I have interviewed some beautiful men in these conversations too, but a lot of the women that I've interviewed in these conversations, I'm really, really, really hearing this theme.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
There is something huge that we have got as women,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
matriarch women. There is
Yep.
a huge part for us to play in this, in the transformation
Yeah.
that is going on at the
Yeah.
moment.
Total. There's a quote by Leonard Cohen. Have you seen that one on Facebook where he says, "I wish the women would hurry up and take over the world."
No,
Love me some Leonard Cohen, but
yeah.
it's a great quote.
Yeah, I definitely, I think that there is, for both women and men, I think there is some coming back together for
Yeah.
really acknowledging each other
Mm-hmm.
in what we bring. I think for many, definitely kind of through the 70s, 80s, there seemed to be periods where we turned our back on each other, and we were kind of
Mm-hmm.
doing this whole women are better than men and men are better than women, and it felt very divided.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt very divided. Yeah. Yeah, I personally think I've spent a lot of my years in coaching, working with women in this whole area of confidence. I mean, I co-wrote a book, Women and Confidence, a couple of years ago. Um, and I can see it's just, we have been indoctrinated, us women, to stay in the background, to not speak up, and you know, it really is something that we need to break down the walls. And again, it's understandable. I mean, when you look at the history of women, uh, it's a scary thing. Women have been burnt at the stake. They have been burnt alive for expressing themselves. I'm talking about this is our cultural history, though.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the, I mean, how could we not be impacted by the history of women when you think about what has happened to them, and they've been persecuted? I mean, even today we see in politics, the nastiness towards women, and the emphasis. They're always attacking how they look, but they wouldn't do that. I mean, they do it with men too, but not as much. But so, there's a lot of factors of why women are scared to come forward, to express themselves, to feel that freedom. But we have to overcome that. We have to see it for what it is. We have to see clearly, um, what has created that, and see it as it's all made up. It's all
Yeah,
been made up, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And
So
breaking that down and really seeing the equality. We bring different and I guess this is the same. This is what I also see between us as individuals. Every single one of us brings something slightly different to the
yes,
table.
yes.
Is important. You know, when we go back to the God entity that I was talking about, we are all aspects of the divine. So
Hmm.
no two of us are identical.
Hmm.
So we all bring something, but I think it's this idea that somebody brings something that is more and more important has been
Hmm.
so big in our world.
Hasn't it?
And
Yeah,
it's like, that just simply isn't true.
I
So
know.
for me, what I am very much about is, who are you? Bring that. And there is nothing wrong with being in the background. There is nothing wrong with being in the foreground. There is nothing wrong with speaking your mind. There is nothing wrong with being behind somebody. But it is, like I see it in our office, Beck and I, we work beautifully together because Beck has strengths and I have strengths.
Yes,
And when
yes,
we have this idea that we are supposed to be strong in the same way, it doesn't work as well. And it's like, no,
exactly.
that's not. And it's not to say that anyone's strength is less than anyone else's. It's this whole idea, and it really feels like in the world there's this whole imbalance with, oh, if you do this, it's really clever and we worship it and it's brilliant. And if you're this kind of person, it's not as important. And it's like seeing, no, 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 we are like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and every piece has its place. And if there is a piece,
Mhm.
if you did a jigsaw puzzle and there's a piece that's missing, it wouldn't matter whether it was a corner piece, a piece from the middle, a piece of the sky, that there's millions of other pieces the same. If there's a piece missing, there's a piece missing, and
Yeah,
it's not complete.
yeah,
To see that and bring that. So
beautiful.
yeah, it's just, yeah,
That's
getting a bit
beautiful.
carried away. We've had, what an amazing conversation.
I've loved it. Oh my God. The first time I've met you two, and I've just loved it. It's great. We have a lot in common, Deb. We've had a history very similar, and yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. There's I thought there's a quote by Rumi that I love that maybe, I don't know, are we ending here? We're
Oh,
pretty much
yeah,
ending, aren't we? It's, not for
pretty
me to
much, but
say, but
yeah.
he says, let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. Isn't that beautiful? It will
That's
not lead
your,
you astray. Be in integrity,
yeah.
it won't lead you astray.
Mhm. Yeah, it's time to shine, not to hide, isn't it? And this is true
Yeah.
for all of us, men and women alike, every human beings. It's time for us to be led. And I do think there is, that quote really brings something up in me, that it's, I know one of the things that I had for a long time was this idea that the things that I wanted to be and the things that I liked to do were somehow wrong. And it was like, I shouldn't
Yes.
want to do that. I should
Selfish. Yeah.
wrong, selfish, all of these things. I shouldn't
Yeah.
want that. And a huge part of the insecurity and trying to be, I needed to conform and be, and I can see a huge part of this was my making up. I need to be the person that someone else needs me to be,
Yeah.
and absolutely
Yeah.
not follow that quote. And yet I see the real power, the thriving and the huge power of fully stepping into following that quote. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just wrote a blog actually about the agony and the ecstasy of desire, things that we desire in life. And, you know, because I've always had trouble with that Buddha quote, that desire is what's the quote? He says that's going to cause you is the cause of your suffering when you have desire. And I always had trouble with that because there were certain desires I had in life,
Mm.
aspirations that just were life-giving, just like you've had the desire to buy some land and build a house. And isn't it life-giving?
Oh my
it's
gosh, it's been
it's just
amazing.
like it just you wake up in the morning, I bet you do, you can't wait to get to
I
work, right?
can't. I can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And so
really,
that kind of
really.
desire is good, because I think what's happening is that you are following your soul. This is unique to you, your uniqueness, Deb, right? Somebody else might have a dream to go and live in another country, but that, for me, those kinds of desires that are just kind of, they feel so beautiful. It's like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be nice if I could do that? Not in a kind of you're not craving it, or like, oh, I wish I could have this, but it won't happen, and I shouldn't dream about it. It's not like that at all. It's like, can you dream about something and be happy even if it doesn't come true, right? It's an interesting question.
Mm.
And that's the perfect sweet spot, I think, for desire, and to how to be in this world and to do stuff that really lights you up. But so many people just they have the wrong desires, and you can tell it's the wrong desire because it makes you feel jealous, or it makes you feel graspy and needy, and oh, it'll never happen to me, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I can honestly say that any pure desire I've had in my life, there's never been a craving. I've always just kind of let it sit there, and just and it's always come true, always,
That
eventually. It may
that's
have taken years, but it did
yeah.
happen,
That's definitely the feeling of this. It's just,
Yeah.
it's there, and it's just, it won't go anywhere. And
Mhm.
at the moment, we've got to a point where we've spent all the money that we have got, and so we
Yeah.
can't move forward at the moment until something in there changes. And
Yeah.
again, it's just like, oh, okay, then that's going to change then. And I know it is, there's
It
no
will, yeah.
doubt.
We think we know how it's going to
Yeah.
happen, and what bricks to use, and what people to know, and we could just we in our limited mind, right? We think, well, how is it possible? But that's the magic of the universe. That's how we just don't know. Things do happen, like
I'm not even
true.
trying to, like you said with this, it's like I know all I am doing is moving totally out of any fear around this, and
Yeah.
just allowing it to I'm just like, I'm almost sitting in awe of, oh my goodness, I wonder what I'm really excited about
Yeah, what's going to show up?
going to
Yeah.
show up next. And it feels beautiful, actually. That it just feels gorgeous. And I
Hmm.
just love spending time on my land. That's it. I'm
Yeah.
happy as a pig in muck, and that's pretty much what I am when I'm there. And yeah, it's beautiful.
That's a beautiful energy to have. Yeah, you're in the right place. You're doing.
Oh.
I look forward to seeing how things evolve for you.
I'm so excited, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. I can assure you. I could carry on this conversation
Oh
all
yeah.
like
But you have a house to build.
yes, absolutely. I have a house to build. No, it's been amazing. Thank you, thank you. So
Thank you,
if
Deb.
people want to contact you, if they're interested in what you shared, what's the best way to contact you to find out more about you?
Yeah, well, you can message me on Facebook. Or you can go on my website, lindafordcoaching.com, and send me a message from there. But Facebook is usually, if you want to talk about getting coaching, or just chat about what's going on with you, if anything's showing up for you today, I'd be more than happy to chat with you.
Oh, I'll make
And I do a lot of writing. That's how I kind of work things out in my own head too. I love telling stories. Story is very important. Narrative. Um, and I usually post a lot on my Facebook page, and also Dominic's Ask and It Is Given. So you can find me there.
Oh, thank you.
But thank you, Deb, and thank you for all you do in the world. It's amazing what you've been doing here this year, this 60th year. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And I'm
Thank you for
very
being
honored to
a
have
part.
the invitation.
It's been great. Thank you very much for being a part of it with me. Thank you.